productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmon. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmon.
Today, we're diving into a topic that's absolutely crucial for the success of any sales team: preventing head trash. Preventing head trash from creeping into the minds of our salespeople. Let's talk a little bit about that. Head trash. Head trash. What is it? Those negative thoughts, those doubts, those distractions that are created by the evil forces that mess with the heads and the motivations and the morale of your sales team members. It can derail even the most talented sales professionals. And as sales managers, it's our job to be absolutely vigilant and proactive in safeguarding our team's mindsets and attitude. In sales, as you well know, a positive, focused mind isn't just a nice to have, it's an absolute necessity. And our team, your team's success hinges on the ability to stay motivated, confident, undistracted by those evil external forces that may try to sap that energy and enthusiasm. And in today's competitive market, in many ways, it's competitive for finding great talent to work on your sales team. It's competitive against the people who are fighting against you to grab the wallet of your customers to get in the doors and make those appointments. We just can't afford to let anything or anyone diminish our team's drive and determination. And whether it's internal conflicts, interdepartmental frictions, or even personal issues, it's your responsibility, our responsibility to recognize it and address these challenges head on. It's up to us to create an environment where salespeople can thrive, free of any unnecessary distractions, negativity, or head trash. So let's dig into this tactic and explore some common signs. First of all, if you've got these, you've got head trash. These are the signs that are going to indicate to you your sales team is struggling with this head trash dilemma. And then I'm going to move on. We're going to give you some action steps, some vital behaviors, some best practice, some actionable strategies to combat this head trash. Just please always keep in mind, even your own voice, your tone, your aggressiveness, your body language, your responses to things can very easily set a salesperson off track, undermining what you want them to achieve, which is undermining your own success. So stay in control of yourself as well. You control their attitudes, which is obviously pivotal to their success. And it's up to all us leaders to protect and nurture that. What are some signs, you may ask? Let's talk about those signs. Very common: lack of motivation and energy, especially if that motivation and energy was at a higher level sometime in the not too distant past. If you notice that you got a sales team member that's dragging their feet, showing less enthusiasm, coming in later, maybe not as engaged as they were, excited or socially as engaging as they used to be, that's somebody that's generally disengaged. And when you've got a disengaged salesperson, you've got an anchor on your team. And it's not always their fault. They're just being humans. And in today's world, you can't just ask them to brush it off, rub some dirt on it, and get back in the game. It doesn't work that way. Another sign is inconsistent performance. If you see somebody all of a sudden that's taking a dip in performance, or they have very erratic results, That's going to indicate that salesperson's mind is preoccupied. Something is creating negative thoughts or external distractions. It may be something at home. You still are going to have to deal with that. They're undermining themselves. They're hurting you. They're hurting the company's sales. Another sign is increased absenteeism, if you're seeing that. Someone who was pretty darn reliable not too long ago is all of a sudden not as reliable. They've got more sick days or unexplained absences, or they're coming back late from lunch or trying to get home early more often. That's a red flag. You know it. And sometimes we're fighting the wrong thing on that. We're mad at the person or we're frustrated with the person and it's all about them. Whereas a leader, we've got to step back and wonder how we could have affected that or what is the root cause of this sudden absenteeism? Is it something you've done? Is it something accounting has done? Is it something that your boss has done? Is it something someone else on the team has done? Maybe you made a tough decision around a commission split or something like that. Maybe you asked them to do something that affected their family life and their spouse got upset with them. And they're blaming you and you're blaming them. And that is a total impasse. You got to embrace that. It's your job, your role to dig yourself out of it. All of a sudden, you got somebody that has a negative attitude, someone that shifted from a positive can do attitude to a lot of negativity. They complain more. They've got a can't do mentality. This pessimism has creeped into their approach to their job. Another sign. Another, when you look at someone who has a resistance to change, most salespeople are fairly optimistic. They love change. They love variety. Most salespeople are high eyes on the DISC assessment, and they love to do different things all the time. They love to do things differently, often to a fault, because it's also hard for them to stay focused on some of the administrative details like CRM entries. But if all of a sudden they become a lot more difficult to move on change, or they become more resistant and skeptical about things, they're dealing with some underlying doubts and fears, head trash. If all of a sudden you see somebody that is lacking initiative where they used to have initiative, that's a problem. People who all of a sudden are going home at 5 o'clock when they used to be more than willing to stay till 6 or 7 or come in on the weekends or go that extra mile regularly. That person's bogged down with negative thoughts. Now, I'm going to touch on some of the components of what creates those symptoms. These symptoms that you're seeing, that is a direct result from some input, some issue that's happened. So let's talk about how we can address. More importantly, I'm all about fire prevention, not firefighting. I'm not going to share information with you during this that is going to be a lot of band-aids. It's going to be root cause analysis and how do I prevent it? Sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you're not in control. Someone else has created it. But we'll talk about that too. I had a very recent example just 2 days ago where a sales manager all of a sudden had 2 or 3 salespeople. One described as, I was so mad I was blacked out. And it was all I could think about for 2 or 3 days. And this was a top performer because of what one person said to them. They felt attacked. They felt demoralized. They felt disrespected. And so this sales manager and I had a discussion around a lot of these things we're about to go through. Now, first and foremost, you've got to be a person that they come to when they've got a problem and they've got a disagreement, they've got a concern, or even if they've got something happening at home, they've got a problem. You have to be the person that is more than willing. You've heard me talk about this a lot. Bring their complaints to. You've got to be a safe person for them to complain to. And if they feel comfortable with you and they come to you quickly, and you are the type of leader who solves these issues or puts in place the processes or steps to prevent them from happening again, you're going to get these complaints. You're going to get this open communication. They're going to be more than willing to come and share things with you. Open communication, a soft place to fall, being someone that is a good listener and open and quiet and doesn't show frustration with their complaint, or you're going to hear about them so you can deal with them. You cannot fix what you don't know about. And you also have to be putting yourself in the position to hear about these things, regular check-ins. Be out there, be with them, have lunch with them, have regular check-ins, one-on-one meetings, which I'm a huge fan of. And if you're open in your communication style, you'll hear about a lot of these things before it starts piling on. Another thing, and this is a common theme to what I share during these discussions, is positive reinforcement. Celebrate successes. Make it bigger than you normally do. It's got to be genuine, but celebrate all successes. Don't just celebrate the big wins. Celebrate all the small wins that lead to the big wins. Thank them regularly. Sincerely thank them. Making sure you're acknowledging achievement. That's going to make you the safe place to fall. And sometimes circumvent some of this negative morale when you're coming back and you're making these big deposits into their emotional bank account. That will counteract some of the negativity. And then if you're regularly providing support and resources, equipping your team with the tools, the knowledge, the training that they need to succeed. Very often I see struggling sales managers who are just barking orders, telling people what to do, telling them they're doing it wrong, but they don't understand what they're doing wrong. They're not sharing with the salesperson the specific steps, the issues that are outside of what this sales manager may be looking for. You got to get down to the details. You got to get into the behaviors, making sure that you're being a coach, helping them self-discover what's happening. And it's not just technical skills, but it's also providing the resources. Maybe it's some additional coaching from you. Maybe it's doing some training, bringing in your sales trainer. Often it's managing stress, helping them manage stress, and overall, you have to have a positive mindset that's contagious. And for sure, if you become aware of internal conflicts between your sales team members, jump on that. Those things cannot fester. You cannot have animosity between your sales team members. Address it quickly, deal with it. It's not always a win-win. Often negotiations in these kind of situations are going to end up with a win-lose, but you got to do it in a way where everybody feels like they're getting something out of it. But the most important thing is speed. Deal with it as quickly as possible. And you are the person they feed on for their attitude, their positivity, their can-do spirit. So you must lead by example. Your attitude sets the tone. You don't get to have bad days. You can have a moment, but make sure you hide that moment. Also, be careful about making sure you're empathetic, not sympathetic. Please don't join them in their misery and agree with it. Don't dive into the cesspool of negativity with them. Stay positive. Stay above all that. help them critically think their way out of negative situations. This builds resilience. And when you're a resilient individual, your team will follow suit. And the more you're supportive and create a supportive culture where you're encouraging teamwork, I've spoken about in the past, collaboration, mutual support. They know that they've got a partner sitting next to them that's willing to pitch in and help out, offer their advice, which we've talked about previously. When you've created a team, a culture with your sales team that's mutually supportive, that culture is powerful. It's a powerful antidote to head trash. Sometimes they fix this amongst themselves so that you don't ever have to deal with it. Then you've done your prevention work and you don't have to deal with it if you do the work in the beginning to create this positive team culture. Moving on to some more best practices, just let's keep in mind your crucial role in standing up for your sales team. You've got to act as a protective barrier against any negative influences. And those negative influences could be coming from a client, could be coming from a prospect. Often it's coming from other departments. And so it's absolutely imperative that as a sales manager, and I always felt like I was pretty good at this, you've got to filter any unnecessary distractions out or prevent them from ever coming. Shield them. You've got to be the force field to prevent your team from being influenced or undermined from negative forces so that they can keep their focus and high morale. Byproduct of that is when they see you advocating for them, you're standing up, you're taking care of things, you're fighting for them, you're addressing any issues head on and honestly and with vigor, you're preventing disruptions. And let's just talk about that for a minute. Because it's likely you've seen this or have this happening with you. I mentioned a couple days ago, two things were affecting a sales team from different sources. And during my coaching session with a sales manager, we talked through these issues. Issue one, which is super common, I've seen this many times. Accounting needed one extra step, a couple more things done when they're entering an order. Went to the sales team, not the sales manager, to implement this. And then when these things weren't fully implemented, accounting was complaining to the salespeople who weren't doing it, not complaining to the sales manager. See, that's where your buffer comes in. You've got to create a single point of contact for your sales team. Information and direction changes need to flow through you, because here was the real issue. Not only had accounting asked for an extra step or two, which slowed the sales team down, the shipping department had also asked for just a week or two prior, an extra step or two. Now things are starting to compound. Both cases, the sales manager was one of the last to know all about this. And he only heard about it after things had started popping off. He didn't even know these things had been asked about, that these changes had been made. Unacceptable. Wasn't his fault. He didn't know about it. But it is his fault that he didn't have the audacity to make sure that nobody talks to my team unless you talk to me first. Now, some people can take that as being a little brutal, a little too aggressive. So you tailor that to however it's going to fit your personality, your culture within your organization. But for sure, there's a single point of contact when dealing with and addressing your sales team, and that's you. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. You cannot manage any other team in an organization like a sales team. Sales teams have to be managed differently. It's a specialized leadership approach. Nobody else in the company is paid by commission. Nobody else in the company has competition fighting to take their customers away or prevent them from selling something all day. And nobody else in the company is facing resistance and negativity, the no's, the not answering the phone, people not responding to them, rejection, rejection, rejection all day, every day. I'll bring that up again because that creates head trash. So you've got all these things brewing all the time, especially the rejection. And then you've got accounting coming, you got shipping coming, and they're whip, beep, 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 beep. You got to do this, you got to do that. You're not doing this right. And then to add insult to injury, they had an individual in this organization that was in product development and never sold a thing in his life, this guy. Been in product development, but he knew everything about selling. And he had developed a new product that the sales team was not doing what he thought the sales team should be doing in the way of volume from that. And when the sales manager's absence one day, he was off doing something else, this product development guy starts coming at the salespeople, telling them they're not making enough phone calls. They need to be making 100 phone calls a day. It's the worst advice you ever gave a sales team. More phone calls does not equate to more sales, period. It adds to frustration. But you're not aggressive, you're not traveling enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, at a tone that was unacceptable. And 3 of the top performers, these are high earners, were highly offended by this. And when I mentioned earlier that one of them was so mad they blacked out, their words. So mad they lost their eyesight. I don't know whether that was literally or not, but that was how it was described. How do you think that salesperson completed the rest of that day being that mad? How high a performer were they that day? And in fact, once she finally came to the sales manager and shared this, it was 2 or 3 days later. 2 or 3 days later, she was still PO'd about it. That's head trash. And guess what happened to her sales during that period of time? Rhetorical question. Moving on, I think you get the point. Salespeople deal with a lot of stress, and some of this stress is beyond their control. And one thing that the vast majority of salespeople don't like is rules. They're not rule followers. They like flexibility. They like variety. They like to be independent, make independent decisions, do things their way. But other departments in an organization sometimes have very strict rules, and they're trying to enforce these rules. Operations accounting again. And if that's left unchecked, that will absolutely lead to negative thoughts that affect their performance, even as minor as some of these interactions may be, but that's head trash, y'all. And if you're a sales manager or a business owner that has a sales team and you're managing them, as a sales manager or sales leader, you've got to create a workplace environment that supports and fosters your team's mental and emotional well-being. So, about today, and I'm about to share some practical ways they will help your salespeople manage their head trash and maintain a primarily positive attitude. No, we're not going to be nirvana. We're not going to be floating around like everything's hunky-dory all the time. We're going to have moments. You got to minimize those moments, not have a goal to eliminate them altogether. We're going to go through. So far, what I wanted to make sure we spent time on was you to understand what head trash was, how important it was for you to address this issue, this whole concept, the importance and the knowledge of how negatively it influences your sales team. And just one thing alone, let me tell you, will be a huge benefactor to you. And that's just having very open communication, safe communication. Be in a place that people feel comfortable and willing to come and share ideas, thoughts, frustrations. I'd rather they be complaining to me than each other, going home and complaining to their spouse or significant other, their roommate. And all of this, as we're about to go through, is going to promote a more solution-oriented mindset with some strategies to help things along to prevent this. And always keep in mind, thing number two, not only be a safe place to fall, an open door, a place that, or a person that people are willing to come and talk to and share things with you, but also what leads to that very often is celebrating successes, positive recognition, a work environment that prioritize their mental and emotional well-being. We do not spend enough time concerned with that aspect of sales success. So stay ahead of distractions, prevent any negative influences coming their way, be very perceptive about what's happening with your sales team members' moods and attitudes. Catch it early. It won't fix itself. You've got to go deal with it because their mindset, what's between their ears, determines 90% of their success. And if you keep their mental state strong and guard against these emotional drains, you're going to be golden. And always remember, they feed off of your mood. I'll underline this again. You don't get to have bad days. Sorry. You got to be on and positive all the time. If you're having a bad day, take a long lunch. Get the hell out of there. Don't influence them. If you've had a fight with somebody at work, you've had a disagreement, you've had a tough day, you've got to put on a good face. Good leaders are sometimes very good actors. All that said, let's get in now to some of the critical best practices for preventing head trash. Now, I've talked about enabling open communications. Single best way. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here. The importance of this. They've got to be more than willing, motivated to come to you with their concerns, their questions, their problems, their frustrations. You need to be their best friend at work. Don't take that literally. But they're in engagement, employee engagement, it's an important aspect is they need to have somebody at work that they can go complain and share their frustrations with. And it's okay sometimes if they're sharing ideas or frustrations with each other, but you really want to be the one that they want to come to. Or that your relationship is strong enough with your entire team. If somebody else is struggling, that the person they're sharing their struggles with comes and shares with you about it so you can get a jump on it. But they need to be able to vent. You need to help them with different perspectives. You can't diminish their feelings. Again, this was a busy week this week. I was coaching another individual, and we got into the topic. He's into jujitsu. And I've always been an admirer of that sport, that discipline. And part of an effective discipline in jujitsu is diminishing energy. Drain the energy of your opponent. In this case, negativity is your opponent. You've got to drain that energy. So very often in jiu-jitsu, you just hold your opponent and make them fight and struggle to get out from your hold. You want them working harder than you to diminish that energy. Negative emotion is negative energy. Drain it. The best way to drain it is get it off their chest. Let them share it with you. Let them talk it through. Listen, ask some questions, some probing questions so you fully understand the situation, but do not diminish it. Do not explain it away. Do not tell them they're silly. Do not tell them they're out of hand, unless they really are, unless they're violating somebody else's space. But make sure you're a constructive person, that you're not telling people what to do, but you're helping them understand what to do. You're helping them critically think. Listen, the two best tools any leader has is your ears. The best leaders lead with their ears. And as I've spoke of earlier, the next thing to keep in mind, this is all about prevention, is collaboration with other departments. I say this far too often, but I'm shocked sometimes at how many times management teams from all the different departments don't get together and talk. They don't have a weekly meeting so that they can share needs and ideas and maybe some changes with each other, getting input and collaboration with the management team. Too many things are kept in a closet within many organizations or siloed within organizations. And when you've got billing and accounting and shipping and all those different departments weighing and demanding on your sales team, that's a problem. They've got to be aligned with the sales team. And the best way for them to be aligned with the sales team is be aligned with you, that you align yourself with the sales team. You've got to take whatever department's needs are, billing, accounting, shipping, product development, whatever it is, and work it out. Make sure you're fully on board. Think about the reaction that this is going to have with your sales team. If it's going to be a tough sell for you to sell the sales team on this, but it's got to be done, you're going to have to maybe talk to your boss or talk to a peer, talk to your coach about how do I filter this, translate this so that it has a minimum amount of negative impact on my sales team. Sometimes changes just have to be made. But you've got to filter that. You've got to design that. You've got to be able to communicate that in a way that's more acceptable and less negatively impacting them. Then making sure that if there are conflicts, now I can't mandate company meetings with your peers, but I do encourage you, if your peers don't want to meet each week or your boss doesn't want you and your peers meeting each week, okay, I'm not talking to your boss right now. I'm talking to you. You're going to have to find a way around that. You're going to have to make a standard that they come through you. They've got to come through you, and then you can process this information, filter it, or making sure very often that what their concern is or whatever their change is, that it really does make a difference. You may have been around there longer, knowing that maybe that what this newbie wants to do to get a notch in their belt, a big win, has been tried before and it fails. Sometimes people don't think about the consequences of their decisions, but you're the one that has to deal with the consequences. Make sure you're the single point of contact. Another thing too, 100% true. Never, ever seen a sales team that this doesn't come up on. They get a bad reputation for disregarding rules and operating outside of established processes. And certainly that's frustrating for other departments. Yes. But to avoid this situation, it's you. It's essential for you to make sure that your sales team understands their boundaries and adheres to them. Know where their line is. Sales teams like to know where their box is. Great salespeople like to walk right up to the edge of that box, but they've got to know not to step over it. They've got to be able to stay in their place. They cannot be blatantly breaking rules all the time. Very often, they get frustrated when they break rules because they don't understand why we have the rule. It seems silly to them. I can tell you there's been times that I've taken the opportunity in these situations just to explain the why behind it. When somebody's really resistant to this, following this rule, I tell them the why and I'll just immediately, oh, I never thought about it like that. Because we're humans. And in our humanity, we create perceptions and biases, and we don't always think about everything that goes into a rule. They need to also understand that by breaking that rule, overstepping their bounds, how that impacts somebody else's job performance. They often don't understand what happens downstream when they make that independent decision to not follow the process. Not everything can be an exception. This is working both ways, right? They're knowing that they're going to be walking right up to that line, sometimes stepping over the line. You've got to deal with that, but in a positive way. And that positive way is to help them understand why they can't do that. Don't jump down their throats on it unless they just become blatant. They're ignoring you now. That's no good. But making sure that you, as the figurehead, as the leader of the sales team, you're collaborating with other departments. And if there's conflicts going on, you resolve it. Salespeople cannot create their own rules. They don't get to have their own procedures as much as they'd like to. The important part is you be the Wikipedia of the whys. They need to understand, comprehend, appreciate the mutually beneficial relationship between sales and whatever other department and the impact that their independent decision-making may be having on them. And here's some other supporting guidelines. This is head trash that happens way too regularly, but it's almost unpreventable. But what you can do is when a customer cancels an order, that you're ready to deal with that. You're ready to help that salesperson pick themselves up. You get back in the game positively. Or client complaints, or an issue with shipping, or a misship, or the quality of a product. Difficult situations outside of the salesperson's control will absolutely lead to head trash, especially if it affects their commission. And as a sales manager, offering this support, being their guider, you've got to help them navigate these complex situations, whether it's emotional support, maybe it is a operational support, process support, but they're going to, again, feed off of you. You cannot become sympathetic to their frustration. You have to be empathetic. Yeah, you got to understand that, but you can't get down in the negativity dirt, the mud with them. If you do it, you're just telling them it's okay to do it. Train them on how to handle these difficult customers, train them on how to deal with the negativity when somebody cancels an order or an order goes out wrong, how we're going to deal with that. And if it's happening too frequently, it's your job to go work with whoever's creating a frequent issues that costing salespeople commissions, get it fixed. But one of the key components of that, the best practice of that is I've got to be managing by walking around. I've got to be managing all the time, talking to my sales team. I've got to regularly and always be engaged with them. You don't want these things to get hidden from you. Why tell them? They never do anything about it. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person when they say they got a problem, you go marching off and make sure it gets fixed. That's the sales manager you want to be. That bolsters their confidence. That displays the support you have for them. You've got their back. And that's going to create their job satisfaction, their motivation. And then this is another thing that's pretty common in the sales world is they get upset. They go to generalities a lot, broad generalities. I've seen this a million times, and all they want to talk about is the problem. They don't want to be involved with the solution, or they don't come to us with solutions. Quick story. I had the biggest volume car dealership in the country was part of a group of stores that I led at one point. And I think it was over 200 salespeople. And in fact, I know it was over 200 salespeople. And this place was just a selling machine. There was a zillion customers coming in, a zillion cars going out. And all of a sudden, there was an issue with cars being prepped in a timely manner so that the salesperson could deliver that car and get back on the floor and start selling more cars. And sales managers really weren't dealing with it, but the sale, and not to the level they should have been. And so they were hearing these complaints. Come on, it's taking too long. It shouldn't take this long to get a car prepped, so I can get it delivered. They were really worked up about it, and that's the kind of virus that gets created amongst sales teams. Is one person, and then it's two people, then it's 10 people, then it's 100 people that are all worked up about this issue. And I knew that there was probably a process issue, but more importantly, I don't think the sales team at that point understood how difficult a job it was in Roseville, California, in the middle of summer, 100+ degree days, how hard that was to work outdoors and get cars prepped. And so one of my smarter moves, I said, okay, I hear you guys. Sales managers didn't deal with it. The general manager didn't deal with it. Now it's falling on my shoulders, and I'm a guy that deals with things. So it came to me, and I said, I know what we're going to do. I went to the general manager, I went to the sales manager, and said, I want you to schedule every one of your sales team members, sales consultants was their title, to spend a half a day in inventory prepping cars every day until every single one of the 200+ salespeople have spent a half a day prepping cars. And I want you, as their sales manager, taking notes on their suggestions on how to speed things up. I want them to be independent third-party observers and participants to understand how they want to come up with a solution to speed things up. They put together this whole schedule. It was going to take weeks to get it all done. A lot of moaning and complaining about it, but that was the devious part of my approach to this, my solution to this. And after, I think, maybe 20 or 30 sales consultants went through that process, we stopped. Why? Because all of a sudden, the sales consultants had a perspective on how difficult it was, how hard it was, how what they thought was possible was frankly impossible. It created this new empathy for how difficult the inventory team's job was. And so all of a sudden, that why came out. That why was discovered on the part of the sales consultants. And so that negativity diminished. That was my devious plan. And it worked like a charm because they needed that other perspective. They needed to see, okay, I know what your problem is. What's the solution? Go be part of the solution. And the solution was, it really wasn't a problem. And that whole thing affecting head trash there bounced right back very quickly. So keep that sort of thing in mind. Sometimes when there's a lot of complaints about how slow or ineffective another department is, you might want to send a salesperson or three in there to go be a problem solver. Have them come back with some solutions. Sometimes they come back with really good solutions. That third party perspective can come up with some great ideas of how to go fix these things. That the people who are doing it every day are they're just working so hard in their blind spots that they can't come up with a solution or can't even imagine a solution. And a salesperson might be able to come in there and see it quickly. Maybe you yourself need to go and work in that department and see how there might be some changes to fix whatever the head trash problem is. The point is, salespeople very often, broad generalities, they jump to conclusions very quickly. They have these perspectives that they create bias around, and then they're viewing everything very myopically through that lens of bias. And all they want to do is complain. You've got to be the person to help them come up with solutions or get it solved for them. But you cannot create that over and over negativity to turn into a virus. Hopefully that's helpful. Always be the person. I'm changing gears now. So making sure, again, I think I've said in every one of these tactics, celebrate successes. That's your rocket fuel. The emotional bank account, the more pumped up they are all the time, if their emotional bank account is very heavily invested in, when these negative things come along, this head trash comes along, that's when it easily gets discarded and doesn't affect them. But if you're towing the line all the time of being overdrawn or not in the emotional bank account, when these negative issues come along, the head trash becomes very dominant. So when you're making regular deposits around their successes, their achievements, large and small, they know that you're their biggest fan. And you're telling them that all the time, genuinely, because there's a line you can cross where it becomes fakey and fake. It tends to have less impact when things go wrong. It's like a force field. So let me start wrapping this thing up. Sales teams, they're facing challenges all the time, all day, every day. Commissions, prospecting, negativity, rejection, all those things, competition. They've got challenges like no other team has. So you can't manage them like any other team. And they have to be motivated at a different level than anybody else in the organization to compensate for all this negativity. Boom. That's the big issue. So when head trash starts seeping into their environment, you've got to catch it, or you've got to prevent it from ever happening, or you've got to be the leader that when it happens, it's a small deal, not a big deal. Watch that emotional bank account. If you're a sales manager, a business owner that has a sales team, pay close attention to this. And if you're not dealing with it and you're not implementing these mindsets that I shared with you today around communication and collaborating and filtering and a single point of contact and an emotional bank account, if you're not dealing with all those things on a regular basis, it's costing you money. So, quick recap: minimize head trash, especially from other departments, open communication, single point of contact, filter. Foster collaboration with other departments. Make sure that we're all being part of the solution. We're not just complaining or working in silos. We're aligning our needs with each other respectfully. You're the person that's the soft place to fall. You're the one that's going to provide empathetic support and guidance. You're maybe going to step up and take care of a customer issue for them. Maybe you're going to step up and protect them from a customer who's being an a-hole. Maybe you can go turn a cancellation around into a renewal. Maybe you can get something back on track. Go be their best supporter and their biggest fan. Making sure your sales team has essential tools, the knowledge, what they need to be successful. Let them have their way. Be proactive in dealing with issues. And with all that, you're going to be able to cultivate more resilience. You'll create a more solutions-oriented mindset with everyone. You're going to be promoting positivity all the time. Proactive problem solver. And getting things done, making sure they know what's expected of them, how they're going to get it done, when they're going to get it done, and help them along the way. I've covered a lot today. Really important topic, one that has costed many sales team way more than it should. Take these ideas, take these mindsets, put them to work, and enjoy the benefit you'll gain from that. Thanks for listening. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the Business Mechanic Show. If today's content resonates with you, then you're going to love what we have to offer. From performance coaching designed to enhance your potential, to executive coaching that guides leaders to steer their ships towards greater success. Are you in sales management or looking to fortify your leadership acumen? Dive into our sales management training and coaching. Not only will it sharpen your strategies, but it will also provide you an ROI that's undeniable. Remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself and your team. And the best part, prices start at just $47 per month, making top-tier coaching and training accessible for everyone. Your growth, both personally and professionally, can have a ripple effect, the one I call the transformational triangle of change. Thanks once again for tuning in, and remember, every business needs a tune-up every now and then. Let the Business Mechanic Show be your guide. Check out our website, rdltraining.com, to discover more details on our programs and coaches. We have a link in the show notes to guide you there. Until next time, we're out of here.